I have been waiting for this moment for over 10 years. Sunrise on the Reaping is now out. When I initially read The Hunger Games, I did not have to wait for any of the books to come out, so this was the first ever Suzanne Collins book that I went to on publication day to pick up from the bookstore, and it was such an exciting experience both for my childhood self but also my adult self, because I recently reread the Hunger Games series, which you can see right here on my shelf, and it has reinvigorated my love for this series. I have only read the trilogy once as a 14, 15-year-old, and when I say that that series changed my life, it made me so excited to be a reader. It introduced me to the book community online. It really fostered this connection with my entire high school grade, because I was one of the few readers of the grade who read outside of our English class, and I was reading The Hunger Games, and it inspired a lot of other people to also read it, and it kind of became an unofficial book club to read The Hunger Games and discuss it, and rereading it as an adult made me open my eyes to the brilliance of Suzanne Collins. I think when I initially read it as a teenager, I was so caught up in the emotions. I was so caught up in the emotions of Katniss, Peeta, Gale, Haymitch, and when I reread it as an adult, I was so much more focused on the government, the control, the different ways that the Hunger Games mirrors that of our society today. When I initially read Mockingjay, I hated it because so many things happen in Mockingjay that would upset a teenager who's emotionally attached to these characters. But when I reread it last night, and I finished it last night, I'm like, no, this is a perfect conclusion to the trilogy, because Mockingjay is Katniss's unofficial third Hunger Games. So of course a lot of people are going to die. Of course a lot of things are going to happen that are going to test the limits of her, and it's going to upset the reader, but that's the point, because even when she escapes the Hunger Games doesn't let go of her. And now I can finally get into Sunrise on the Reaping. The fandom has been wanting a Haymitch book for years now. Haymitch is a very interesting character because we only ever see him through the lens of Katniss, which is largely from a place of judgment, because while she does respect him, she doesn't respect his response to Panem, and his response is becoming an alcoholic to deal with the likely PTSD that he has, the likely trauma and grief that he carries because of how he won the Hunger Games and because of the way that the government responded to his victory. Being able to hold this in my hands feels so surreal, because we've been wanting this for over a decade now, and Suzanne finally decided now is the time to release it. I am so scared to start this. I was going to start it last night after I finished Mockingjay, but two of my friends texted me to ask me if I started the book, and I said no, I'm still finishing Mockingjay, and they were like, okay, well, within the first 40 pages, you're going to cry. And I was like, I feel like I need to save that for tomorrow, which is today, so I can film my reactions, because I know I'm going to cry. I'm emotional just thinking about it, and I'm so excited to start it, even though I know it's going to crush me. So this reading vlog will be full of spoilers. If you have not read the Hunger Games trilogy, if you have not read Sunrise on the Reaping, please go read them and then come back to this video. I do not want someone complaining in the comments saying, "You spoiled me!" I am warning you now. Listen to my voice. Look me in the eyes. I'm going to spoil the entire thing because this is an in-depth reading vlog for Sunrise on the Reaping. I've waited over 10 years for this. Nobody can tell me what to do anymore. So the first order of business is taking off this annoying Barnes & Noble sticker that you see on the cover. I have really fragile nails and they will crack under the slightest pressure, so pray for me while I do this, because yes, a sticker can make my nail crack. It's insane. It looks great. Now let's take off the dust jacket, because I don't read with the dust jacket on. And look how beautiful, let's get my face out. Look how beautiful this is. Wow. Amazing. So here's the thing about me, I like to highlight my books, and I don't want to hear anyone complaining in the comments as well. because I'm going to highlight the fuck out of this book. I'm going to highlight my favorite quotes in purple. I'm going to highlight my favorite piece of foreshadowing to the future trilogy in black. And then I have another pen downstairs that has a red ink that I'm going to use to highlight world building. And those are the 3 colors that I'm going to use for this story. I'm really excited to be devastated. I feel like 27-year-old and 14-year-old Olivia are holding hands and we are shaking with anticipation. Okay, I have 2 updates for you, and they're only on pages 6 and 8. So that's when you know there's already so much that I've underlined. The first thing that I wrote down is that Haymitch is friends with Katniss's dad. His name is Burdock, and Haymitch said that he was with Burdock over the fence in District 12 when Burdock said, "Want to hear something?" He tilted his head back and sang out in that remarkable voice of his, high and sweet, like a grown-up woman's, but clear, nothing warbly about it. Everything seemed to go still, and the mockingjays began to pick it up. I knew they'd sing for other birds, but I've never heard them sing for a person before, which is something that Katniss always said about her father, where he would always sing to the mockingjays and whistle to them, and they would whistle back, and they would even pause their own tunes to listen to her father. And Burdock is distant cousins with Leonore Dove, who is Haymitch's girlfriend. And Leonore Dove, which is the other thing that I wanted to talk about, is a Covey, which is the descendant of Lucy Greybeard, who is the girl in Snow's book. And I have not read that book yet, but I did order it on Pango Books because I do eventually want to read it. I was so hesitant to pick up that book because I never cared about Snow's backstory. I never cared about Snow as a character, but a couple of my friends have told me that is totally worth the read and I should give it a shot. So I told myself I would eventually read it this year. Probably not right after Sunrise on the Reaping, just because I need a break from Panem, and I just wonder how much more is going to weave these 2 stories together, and it makes you realize how similar Katniss and Haymitch are, because they both go over the fence in District 12, they both are very rambunctious and rebellious, and they're both connected to Lucy Gray in some way. So much is happening. We are at the Reaping, and the kids were picked for the Hunger Games, and Haymitch was not picked, but the final boy that was picked tried to make a run for it, and the peacekeepers shot him. The mother of the son wanted to hold his body, and Leonore Dove tried to protect her from the peacekeepers, and the peacekeepers were about to attack Leonore Dove for protecting another citizen when Haymitch intervened, and that's what got him picked as the replacement. And the woman who is the Effie of our time, Drusilla, said, "Oh, just shoot that girl, won't you?" And then a man intervenes and he says, "Hold it. If I could, Drusilla, I'd love to keep her for the tearful goodbye." The audience eats that stuff up, and as you always remind us, it's a challenge for them to even notice 12. And she goes, "Fine, Plutarch." Plutarch Heavensby? I'm shocked. I'm shocked that Haymitch was not picked, but I'm also not surprised. Felt like something was always a bit off about his games, and I'm wondering if everything that Katniss saw about Haymitch's games were even real or if they were edited, but I'm loving how all the characters from Katniss's books are coming together in this one, and the amount of cameos that are occurring feels like Marvel level for me. Like, I can't believe that Plutarch is already playing the Hunger Games as a game maker in Haymitch's games. I'm like the Mr. Krabs blur meme right now. I'm so stressed out. It's so interesting to have Plutarch in this book because Haymitch doesn't give away that he truly knows Plutarch in Mockingjay, besides the fact that they are allies. And I really like how Suzanne Collins already by chapter 3 is really exploring playing up the Hunger Games for the cameras and how they are so obsessed with seeming perfect and that there's no uprising, there's no rebellion. I've highlighted so much so far and I'm just in love with this story already. Haymitch just said in 50 years we've only had one victor, and that was a long time ago. A girl who no one seems to know anything about. Back then, barely anyone in 12 had a television, so the games were mostly hearsay. I've never seen her in a clips of old shows, but then those early efforts are rarely featured as they are said to be badly filmed and lacking in spectacle. Very interesting that there's no footage or evidence of Lucy Gray because that's all part of Snow's plan to make it seem like nobody's ever stood up to the Capitol. Plutarch also said that their mentors will talk to them soon, so I'm really excited to see who's going to be Haymitch's mentor. I was just sitting here journaling and I got a notification that my package arrived, so let's unbox it. I will most definitely not be reading this in this vlog, but it's really nice that I now have it on my TBR. So I'm excited to finally give this a shot after putting off reading this for years now. How the hell is Luella back from the dead? I'm so creeped out. This feels like when they made the Mutts look like the previous district kids. It's so creepy. This is like so much creepier than Catching Fire and Hunger Games and even Mockingjay. Like this is so dark. So Plutarch has seen the new Luella and he said best guess is she's the child of traitors. Could be either district or capital. She might not even know herself. No question, they programmed her, probably drugged her as well. And Haymitch asks, so he's gonna send her in, whoever she is, and get her killed in the games, I ask? That seems to be the current plan, admits Plutarch. I don't approve any of this. I hope I'm just like you when I grow up. Oh, wait a minute, that won't be happening. I love how sassy Haymitch is. I love the subtle hint of humor that he has woven into not only his dialogue, but his internal monologue as well. But it's just so creepy. One, that they surgically altered a child to look like Luella, but two, that they see these children as so completely disposable that they don't care who goes into the games as long as there's an even amount of children who will go into the games. And you can see that clearly with the way that Haymitch was picked for the games, because him standing up for Lenore Dove was just enough to get him picked after that one kid was shot by the peacekeepers. It's just so horrifying. This is like a very different side that we're seeing to the Capitol. Katniss saw a very specific side to them, and this is like another side of the die. This book is so fucked up. I think this will be the most difficult movie to see besides Catching Fire. Catching Fire, when I initially saw it, instilled so much rage in me, and I was just so angry for Katniss to have to return to that situation. The amount of casual cruelty that is mentioned in this novel is just astounding. I swear Plutarch has been trying to bring down President Snow for decades now. He is really always on the inside, and I think that's completely fascinating. Update on Sunrise on the Reaping. I'm on page 136 and I have 3 things that I want to update you on. 1, it was revealed who the mentors are for District 12 and it is Wirus and Mags, and I was absolutely shocked that it would be Wires and Mags. I forgot that the tributes who won in other districts would become the mentors for District 12 because there have been no previous winners besides Lucy Gray, who's not mentioned. And seeing Mags be able to speak and communicate is so amazing because in Catching Fire, she's not able to communicate verbally with Katniss, and only Finnick really understands her, and being able to see her guide Haymitch and the other tributes in District 12 is really great. And I love seeing how all of these victors are connected with one another, even throughout Haymitch's life. Being able to see them as their younger selves is so much more heartbreaking to realize that they are friends, they are mentors, they are allies even before Catching Fire. So knowing that they had to eventually go against one another, it's just so cruel. And another cruelty that completely took me off guard was Luella passing away during the chariot kind of entrance that all the districts do, and she passed away because their horses from District 12 got spooked. I couldn't really picture the scene, but I think they kind of like reared up, and that caused the chariot cart to go back, and that landed on Luella and she passed away. While Lenora Dove will forever be my true love, Luella is my one and only sweetheart. And I was texting my friend who's also reading the book, and I was like, that is so heart-wrenching to hear because the Capitol doesn't even care about. And Haymitch decides to go against the Capitol and carry Luella's body in front of Snow to be like, look at what you've done. Look at the children who die for your entertainment. Are you entertained? And when he said that Luella is his only sweetheart, it calls back to the entire Hunger Games trilogy because he calls Katniss sweetheart. And because we know he's best friends with Katniss's father, you can see how he kind of treated her like his niece. Then we go into the training and we find out that one of the trainers is Beetee, and I think this is one of the most heartbreaking parts of the novel so far. I'm sure it's going to get even worse. Beetee is a trainer because one of the kids who was reaped is his son, and Beetee tells Haymitch that it is a punishment because Beetee was trying to mess with the communications in the Capitol. So even before Mockingjay and even before Catching Fire, he was rebelling against the Capitol in really subtle ways, and they must have caught him beforehand. And Haymitch asks Beetee, and they made you his mentor, and he said, it's part of the punishment, watching what are most certainly the last hours of my son's life. They even gave me a booth in training, which mentors don't traditionally attend, so I wouldn't miss a minute. If I wasn't here to witness it, there would be no point. The Capitol is obviously so cruel. We knew that from the entire Hunger Games trilogy, but I feel like they're on a different level with Sunrise on the Reaping, and I think it's because Snow is really scared of any sort of rebellion, any sort of revolution, because he's seen what Lucy Gray is capable of, and any sort of resistance from the tributes and from the citizens of Panem. And we see that through the victors who are forced to become mentors to future tributes. We see that through the way that they didn't even care that Luella passed away during the chariot event, and then we see that distinctly through Beetee's punishment, and how this punishment is watching his son prepare for the Hunger Games, knowing full well there's very little chance that he will win it. And that makes it even harsher to realize that Beetee not only won the Hunger Games and had to kill many people in order to survive, he had to watch his son die in an eventual other Hunger Games, but then Beetee was forced to go back to the Hunger Games in the third quarter quell. So Beetee's gone through so much. Every single tribute has gone through so much. I feel like when we initially see the Hunger Games trilogy, and whether it be the movie or whether we read the book, we're like, wow, they are so cruel to Katniss and Peeta. They're so cruel to everyone. They are so cruel, and they really pick you apart in what you love most, and they use that against you. People were saying that it feels too much like fan service to see all the victors mentioned in this book. It feels like these Marvel cameos that are just for the fans, but I disagree because Panem is a very close-knit type of country, and we are focusing primarily on the tributes and the eventual victors, and there's not a lot of victors to choose from. So of course we're going to see those victors as their younger selves in Haymitch's book. Of course, we're going to see them again in Catching Fire because that's the entire point. Even when they win the Hunger Games, they are still tied to it. They're forced to be mentors, they're forced to go back, they're forced to watch their families play in the Hunger Games. There's no escaping the Hunger Games. I think Haymitch even says it in the book and the movie. The Hunger Games doesn't end when the game is over. You're always going to be playing in it. I'm scared. I'm worried. I feel like Snow is so much crueler in this book than he is in the Hunger Games trilogy, which is really impressive in the most horrifying way. I'm like, how is this man getting worse in the past? I don't understand. Every single chapter, it gets more horrifying, and it's even wilder because the Hunger Games hasn't even started in Haymitch's book. I think Suzanne Collins really did not hold back in her commentary of propaganda, of manipulation of citizens, and the way that the Capitol has such a tight grip on everyone's lives and how easily things can slip away from them. And I love her reminder that the Capitol is just the few, and they are governing the many, and the many outweigh the few. And she's like, just something to keep in mind. Just something to keep in mind. I think at the beginning of the vlog, I was calling Lenore Dove Leonore, and that's not her name, it's Lenore. But yeah, pardon me for that mistake. I'm on page 208 and they are just arriving at the arena, and I'm terrified because I'm convinced that everything that Katniss saw about Haymitch's Hunger Games was edited or just altered, and it's not the truth. So I'm so scared for them to officially start the games. I just feel like everything that's gonna happen is going to take me completely by surprise, and I'm worried. I'm so worried. I already know the outcome and I'm still worried. Also on page 201, they had a really good quote, and it says, Plutarch seems genuinely happy, saying he's going to help edit the clips together into some fine propos. He sighs when he mentions the tools that were abolished and incapacitated in the past, ones deemed fated to destroy humanity because of their ability to replicate any scenario using any person, which is AI and deepfakes. And in mere seconds, he snaps his finger to emphasize their speed. I guess it was the right thing to do, given our natures. We almost wiped ourselves out even without them, so you can imagine. But oh, the possibilities. I was wondering if this was gonna primarily be a novel discussing the horrors of AI. I'm really glad that Suzanne Collins kind of hinted towards it and how it was eventually kind of broken down and not used anymore because it was clearly ruining humanity. And you can see that today with the effects of AI on our environment. Not me figuring out that I have been saying the character's name wrong for like the entirety of this novel. I've been saying Maisily, but her name is Maisley. And that's on me. And also I got chocolate on my book. So we have two L's here, but you know what? You know what is more important? The fact that this book is so fucked up. Suzanne Collins really did not hold back any punches when writing this book, and I have an entire notebook page of updates to share with you. Haymitch is so much like Katniss. Their parallels are absolutely delicious, and I love how Suzanne Collins is both subtle about it, but then she also made Haymitch sit beside Katniss, the plant in the games, and I was like, the Leonardo DiCaprio DiCaprio pointing meme. I have two quotes that I want to read that remind me so much of his parallel to Katniss. This is when he is with Ambert and he thinks to himself, looking at him, which is Ambert, "I can't help thinking that all the little ones seem to end up with me. Luella, Lulu, Ambert, I can't keep a one of them safe. Why do they flock to me?" I feel like Katniss had the same exact thought when Rue kept following her around, where Katniss feels very hardened to the world and hardened towards others, and she feels like she's not an approachable type of person compared to Peeta, but Rue seems to flock to her for safety and comfort, and she sees these children the same way that she sees Prim, and Haymitch also sees these children as his brother Sid, and those parallels are so beautiful and heartbreaking to know that these two teenagers had to grow up so quickly and act like adults around these children who are scared for their life and they're fighting for their life. And knowing that Katniss and Haymitch both had this internal battle where they're like, I can't protect these kids. These kids will die. I may even potentially see them die, is so, so sad. Another quote that I underlined is on page 293, and it says, "Day 6, somehow I'm still alive. I have no idea why the game makers under Snow's direction have not destroyed me already. Could I possibly be so popular that they're keeping me around to please the audience? Are they planning some particularly spectacular ending for me? I don't know, but I do know the arena is still begging to be broken." And that also reminds me so much of Katniss and Peeta, because from the start, they were defiant to the Capitol. From their clothing to the way that they played these characters, and they played the Capitol by pretending to be a couple. They're both so defiant, Katniss and Haymitch, and they both have this thought, when is Snow going to punish me? Because everyone knows you can play this game and you can win this game. And if you win this game, you can still get punished by the Capitol, even though you are seen as a celebrity. And I also was completely horrified by Ambert's death. Ambert died in such a horrific way where he was torn apart by these mutts, and all that was left were bones. Now Beetee doesn't have a child to bury. Beetee doesn't even have a child to hold, to say goodbye to see one more time. All he has is bones to bury, and that is such a direct attack from the Capitol, from Snow, towards Beetee for being defiant. And even Haymitch said that the mutts didn't even pay attention to him because they were focused and they were programmed just to go after Amber, which is so horrifying and so sickening to read about. There is the first mention of the poster before part 3, which is titled The Poster. I saw a video on TikTok of Reaper Ash, who is from Lucy Gray's Hunger Games, and when he takes off the flag of Panem and puts them over the bodies of the children, people said that that is his poster. And then we have Maisley and Haymitch speaking about the poster, and it is a grand defiance to the Capitol. It's kind of like your last moment to send a message knowing that you're going to die. This is the poster of who you are to the Capitol. This book is largely exploring not only a early defiance to the Capitol and Haymitch's games, but also how the games are perceived through the media and how PR tactics are used to make the Capitol seem more powerful and that there's no defiance from the other districts. But I also highlighted this moment that talks a little bit more about that. So Haymitch and Maisley are eating together and she sets up the plate very nicely. She reminds me a lot of Effie, if Effie was a little bit more spunky and willing to defy the Capitol. So he compliments her on setting such a nice breakfast during the Hunger Games, which is a big juxtaposition between this atrocity versus this finery. And Maisley said, "Thought I'd kick off the day with a poster." And his internal monologue says, "I think about it. Her emphasis on manners, her pretty picnics, and I remember her words that first day on the train. Listen, Luella, if you let them treat you like an animal, they will, so don't let them." This morning's poster says, "We're civilized. We appreciate beautiful things. We're as good as you." It's an extension of her whole campaign to show the Capitol our value. Will they know that she's referring to rebellion? I doubt it. They don't know what Pa told me. A poster could merely be promoting us as tributes. And what harm is there in a few flower napkins anyway? I love the idea of this grand defiance being showing the other districts and the capital that District 12 is civilized. It is a civilization because it is largely filled with lower income people who are marginalized and they are seen as lesser than, the same way where people view the South in the United States of America as lesser than the North, because it is lower income and there's so many different stereotypes that people cling on to justify their dislike of the South. And Suzanne Collins uses that because District 12 is set in the Appalachian Mountains, where she notices that people in Appalachia are not appreciated for their culture, for their vibrancy, for their humanity, and Maisley and Haymitch are showing that they are civilized. They are worthy of humanity, and they have humanity all the way to the end. And I think that's such a grand display of defiance to the capital, even though they know the capital will not understand the nuance of that moment. So where am I currently in the book? I am up to the chapter where Maisley and Haymitch have torn through the evil, scary hedges that are surrounding the end part of the arena, and they have finally cut through it, and they see a machine that Haymitch is hoping to break the arena. And I wrote down that I am dreading Maisley's death because we know that she eventually dies when they reach the end of the arena, and knowing that moment is going to arise, it's so like anxiety inducing because I don't know if it was altered by the capital. I don't know if that's a real moment that's going to happen. I don't know when it's going to happen, and it's making me so nervous because I love Maisley's character. I think she's so fiery and sassy, and I just love everything that she personally stands for. And I also have been listening to the score for all four movies while I'm reading the book, and it is so immersive. I'm not listening to the soundtrack, which is the music that people have made for the movies. I'm listening to like the actual score of the films, and it is so immersive. It really heightens the anxiety that I'm feeling, and I really wanted to share all of these thoughts before I hunker down right here. I put on the ambiance music and I finished this book. All of my friends have cried while reading the end of this book. I feel like I'm gonna cry, which is why I have no makeup on. I'm terrified to see how it's going to end. I think I've been spoiled a little. I think that we see Peeta and Katniss in the epilogue, which is totally fine with me. I really wanted an epilogue where we see him at a better place as an adult, where he's loved by a large group of people, because he really deserves that. They've reached the end of the arena, and Haymitch says, I'm gonna stay here, and Maisley says, alright, then there's only 5 of us left. May as well say goodbye now anyway. I don't want it coming down to you and me. And I'm like, no. What if I stop the book right now? And I'm like, everything turned out okay. Everything turned out okay. Right when I said that, they got her. This book is so fucking sad. I completely forgot to say that they killed game makers in this game when they were trying to like clean up the arena. It was so weird. And Haymitch asked himself, were their deaths painful? Do they leave people behind? Are their parents, friends, and neighbors weeping for them as ours do when they lose us? Will their loved ones ever know how they really died, or will an accident be fabricated to conceal the capital's incompetence? Body doubles probably won't be practical. Ugh, this is brutal. This is so anxiety-inducing. We are after the Hunger Games, and Haymitch is getting ready for his victor ceremony. And we finally see Wirus and Mags. And I was telling my friends when I was reading it, I wonder what had happened to Mags and Wirus to make them the way that they are in Catching Fire. And Haymitch says, finally Mags arrives in a wheelchair. While a still mobile but distressed Wirus twitches her head about in a bird-like fashion, a steady stream of words spouting from her lips. Very bad things had been done to them. Their torturous treatment makes it impossible to deny my family certain punishment. Are they already dead? Or will Snow arrange, as he did with Beatty, for a time where I can personally witness their suffering? The energy's gotten so heavy, even after the games. The energy was already dark, but it's like getting significantly darker, and I'm just dreading it. It's crazy how much of the games that they've edited, so none of Haymitch's posters are even being shown. It is infuriating. The game makers must have been scrambling like crazy to control the narrative by this point. Whatever the case, the audience here in the auditorium has embraced this version, cheering and jeering on cue. Their lack of discernment transforms the recap, validating it as truth. I hope those in districts can see it as the piece of propaganda it is, but no telling what they've been fed. Fantastic snippet right there. Go with them. Some parts of this book I think are so outlandish, but then I remember that celebrities are the way they are. So it says, the after parties held in the ballroom of the presidential mansion. I'm displayed in a giant golden birdcage that dangles from the main chandelier at about eye level. It's supposed to be a joke, I guess. The guests sure seem to get a kick out of it, but it isn't. When I try the little handle at the door, it's locked tight. The Capitol is just honestly so ridiculous. Like, would anyone act that way? But then I remember that when Squid Game came out, Chrissy Teigen hosted a Squid Game party for her and her rich friends, not understanding the nuance of the entire plot of that show and the fact that it is a commentary about how the ultra wealthy hoard money, which leaves everyone else impoverished and risking their entire life for money. Sometimes people really do act like the people from the Capitol. What the fuck? Haymitch and Lenore Dove love each other so much, it makes me want to cry. I'm so glad they had a reunion, knowing what comes, because no. No, no. Suzanne, no. 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 President Snow? President Snow? The first paragraph of the epilogue says, when Lenore Dove comes to me now, she's not angry or dying, so I think she's forgiven me. She's grown older with me, her face etched with fine lines, her hair touched with gray, like she's been living her life beside me as the years passed instead of lying in her grave. Still so rare and radiant. I fulfilled my promise about the reaping, or at least lent a hand, but she says I can't come to her yet. I have to look after my family. What the fuck? I first saw the girl at the Hob when she was just a baby. Burdock was so proud of her, he toted her around everywhere. Okay? That's the news. I can't even fucking read because I'm crying so much. Oh my god. I even have a teardrop on the page. Are you kidding me? Oh my god. Tough and smart, her hair in 2 braids then, reminding me and for the world of Luella McCoy, my sweetheart of old. Oh my god. This whole epilogue is gonna make me sob. Katniss showed up with an old basket filled with goose eggs. She said not to eat, to hatch. I raided a few different nests so they can breed alright. She's so cute. She's not an easy person. She's like me, as Peeta always says. They're like 2 sides of the same coin, truly. She was smarter than me, or luckier. She's the one who finally kept the sun from rising. The capital can never take Lenore Dove from me again. They never did in the first place. Nothing you can take from me was ever worth keeping, and she is the most precious thing I've ever known. It's finished, and it was everything I wanted and more. I knew I would cry, and I did, and it was just so emotional to watch Haymitch just go through everything that he had to go through, from losing all the kids that he fought alongside with to feeling how much anger he had within him, which was very similar to Katniss, to then come home and lose his family and Lenore Dove so horrifically in a way that is so out of his control, and to have Snow provide the gumdrops that Haymitch then fed to Lenore was so dark, so upsetting. This entire book is upsetting, and we've been asking for this book for over a decade now, and I'm so happy we have it because it enriches the original trilogy so much more. There's so many more layers now to unpack. There's so much more weight behind Haymitch's actions in the original trilogy and the hints of District 12 that we see through Katniss's eyes. I love seeing how connected Haymitch was to Katniss because so much of their life were so similar to one another, and they have a deep connection through their history, through District 12, through their families, through the people that they know. And I think that Suzanne Collins is such a clever author because she takes her time. She's not here for the fame because she hardly ever does interviews. She's here to expand her world and send direct messages to her readers. I loved its explorations of propaganda and the manipulation of media through the lens of the Capitol, and how quickly and deftly they are able to spin a story in their favor. I think it's so impressive for Suzanne Collins to explore that through Haymitch's games, because we've been all wondering what the games are like for him, and we only saw it through Katniss's eyes, and we only saw it through her eyes because she watched a Capitol edited video of the games. But we saw the games through Haymitch's eyes, and then we saw him witness the manipulation of it and its explorations of propaganda, and its reminder that we are governed by the few but we are the many is so vital at this point, because if you sit in this complicity, they are winning. So you have to always remember, one, to see a brighter future ahead, which Lenore does, which Lucy Gray does, which Haymitch and Katniss and Peeta do, but also the reminder that community is important, and community can be an entire nation, it could be an entire state. Suzanne Collins always has something important to say, and there's so many ways that you can unpack Sunrise on the Reaping, and now there are so many ways that you can unpack the trilogy, which I have up here, through the lens of what we learned about Haymitch. I think this is her darkest book. Haymitch has gone through so much. He's lost so much. He's filled with so much rage. And I think the thing that really gets to me, maybe even you as well, is the fact that Haymitch has been holding on to this anger and holding on to this grief for 25 years. And that's a lot of time. I'm 27. That's nearly my whole entire life. Katniss was in the Hunger Games, then she was in Catching Fire the following year, and then we had Mockingjay, which was like a couple weeks after Catching Fire. So she had 2 years of this constant loss, this constant grief, this constant pain at the hands of Snow and the Capitol. The fact that he wasn't even reaped for the games, he wasn't chosen, he was plucked out of the crowd to replace another kid because they're seen as disposable. Every single aspect of his life crumbled around him, and he was left in the ashes for 25 years until Katniss and Peeta came along. I loved Sunrise on the Reaping. I think I have not read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, so I can't comment on that, but I think that everything that Suzanne Collins does is so purposeful. She's so meticulous with her world. She's so meticulous with her characters. It felt like it was closing the world of the Hunger Games. I don't think I need another book from the Hunger Games. I think this provided us with a lot of insight into the Coveys, into Snow, into Haymitch, who was like a very central character for me that I wanted to learn more about because his games were so grand and so explosive. Sunrise on the Reaping, for me personally, is such a great way to close this world. I would personally really enjoy a book about Joanna because I think seeing a book from the lens of a girl who is seemingly normal and then becomes one of the most angry women you could ever come across would be a fantastic journey of character development or character regression in a way. But I would love for her to dive into other genres or other ideas of hers. I really want her to write a standalone post-apocalyptic book. I think her exploration of the fall of society and how quickly people lose their humanity, which is like morals, empathy, sympathy, good and bad. That would be a fantastic exploration from her because she's very philosophical, and I wish that we had more philosophical apocalyptic books a la The Road. I'm really happy I took you guys on this journey with me because I have been truly waiting for this book for over a decade now, and having it in my hands, reading it, experiencing it for the first time was so special, even though it was like traumatizing and really dark and gruesome and horrifying. But I'm really happy that Suzanne Collins provided us with this story. Let me know your thoughts about Sunrise on the Reaping. Did you enjoy it? What was your favorite part? If she were to write another book, because a lot of people have a theory that she's doing another trilogy, which would mean she would write one more book, who do you think it would be about? If you want to follow me anywhere else on social media, all my links are down below, and I will see you in another video very soon. Have a good day. Bye.